So cool to hear Daniel's story and kind of see all that God has done in his life in these past few years. Man, it's so exciting. I remember that retreat with Chi Alpha, and it's so cool. Who would have thought that some kid coming up would, go through an internship and is finishing his courses to be Reverend Daniel Guadiano. So that's right. He's asking me how he can get the bishop title, and I don't know, bro. I'm still working on it for myself, so I'll keep you in the loop. But man, we're so thrilled to hear these different stories and to see all that God is doing. And really, this is our last week of our series for our city. This has been an incredible time that we've come together and talked about the vision and direction that we believe that God is giving us for the future of Icon Church. We've talked about how we believe, just like Daniel and Benji talked about, that it includes getting a permanent home. And man, we're so excited. And what's been so cool is to watch the different stories of how God is working in people and through people in this campaign. Because here's the deal, to get a permanent facility, it's not easy. It's a leap for us. It's a leap of faith for us as a church to step out and do that, because it'll require quite a bit of finances. It's been so cool to see the different stories about how God is leading and moving on people's hearts. And one of those cool stories happened for Kelly and I in our own home. You see, this has been a conversation for us, talking about the sacrifices that we're going to make as a family and what that means. And I remember one night several weeks ago, putting my son Jackson to bed, and I was sitting there on his bed, and we had been talking about all that God was doing and the different things that having a permanent facility, having a permanent home would do, and the different things that we could do in the kids' environments, and the different things that we could do, all that, just from kids to adults to youth. We talked about the youth room, and I remember him saying, "Daddy, you know what the best part is?" And I know my son, he has a huge heart. And I was talking about the different people he could invite to church and people that find Jesus. And how, my heart was just brimming. I said, "What, buddy, what's the best part?" And he goes, "That we could have donuts on Sunday again." And I thought, that kid's got his priorities straight. That's, Jesus is right up there too. But donuts to him, that was the win. You may think, do they even feed their kids? Yes, we do. They just really like church donuts. So anyway, that's what he was talking about. But honestly, more than that, what was honestly even better than that was sitting there and talking to him, and he had heard the different sacrifices that Kelly and I, that we've been talking about, that I'm making. And he said, "Daddy, so you're going to sell your motorcycle and give that money to the church?" And I said, yeah. And he goes, "Well, I really think that we'll make that money a whole lot faster than 3 years." I said, "Well, why is that, buddy?" He goes, "Well, because I'm going to sell some of my toys, and I'm going to sell some of my books, and I'll give that money to the campaign." And I thought, just the thought process for him, it was so cool to see him, a child, willing to sacrifice and give towards this campaign. And over there in Kids Church, in eKids, they're talking about how they can give. And they've made these little kind of banks that they've brought home, that they've got to color in, that they're collecting, that they're giving towards their future church as well, their future church home. And it was so cool. And then he talked about how he wants to sell his tablet that he got a couple years ago for Christmas and give that money. And it's so cool to see how God is working in so many different people's lives, to see God's plan happen. And that's how he does it. He uses every single ones of us. He uses big gifts that some people are able to give, and he uses really small gifts that even kids are able to give. And here's the deal. As we close out this series for our city, I could sit here and we could talk about all the plans that we have that a permanent home would allow us to have and to move forward with. We could talk about the kids' environments and what we could do and what it would look like. And I could sit here and I could tell you my dreams for sports ministry, to offer sports camps to underprivileged kids. And I could sit here and talk to you about opportunities that we may have for Mother's Day Out type programs and the need that there is in San Marcos and Kyle. And we could go on and talk about youth and leadership development and internships and all of those things. But here's the deal. There's a lot of things we could do with a permanent facility. But at the end of the day, I want to circle back today and talk about something that we had touched on at the very beginning of the series, and that's why. Why are we doing this? Why make this kind of sacrifice? Why are my kids? Why are your kids? Why are we all getting on board? Why are we doing this? Here's what we believe. We believe that a permanent home is the absolute best way to reach more people for the cause of Christ. Because at the end of the day, people matter to God. They do. People matter to God. You matter to God. The people that aren't in this room, the countless people just like Daniel matter to God so much. He'd send a bunch of crazy people that apparently Daniel didn't care about early on, all the way to Texas to start a church. They matter to God. And here's the deal. I don't think I have to sit here and convince you that God loves people. I mean, I don't think anyone's really sitting here right now going, I don't know about that whole like God and people business. I don't think he really cares too much about them. Right? Like we're here in church. I think common sense would tell us that God loves people. I mean, the entire arc of the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation is about God's redeeming work, about how much he loves humanity and what he's doing to try to restore people back into himself. I mean, it was one of the early followers of Christ that they wrote down what Jesus was saying, and he said this. He said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." And he went on, he said, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." See, this is a verse that if you grew up in church, you probably learned. This is a verse that if you watch football on Sundays, you see held up, John 3:16. It's all about God loved the world so much that he gave. He gave his Son. So the question today isn't, does God love? The question today is, will we partner with that giving spirit? Will we partner with what God did and help more people find Jesus? You see, because here's the deal. Sports camps, that'd be great. Mother's Day Out programs and leadership development and internships and all these great kids environments, those things are great. But at the end of the day, this whole thing, everything we do, it's all about Jesus. It's all about him, because it's only him that can restore marriages. It's only him that can give purpose to life, that can bring people from a place where they're wandering aimlessly, like you heard Daniel saying. You can take people like that. It wasn't some fancy message that made a difference in Daniel's life. It's the power of Jesus. That's what did it. And we believe that the absolute best tool to do that would be to step out in faith and believe for a permanent facility. See, our goal here, our mission at Icon Church, I hope you get sick of hearing me say, we want to help as many people as possible become more like Jesus. Because as we look at the life of Jesus and the way he lived, and then he said, come and follow me. Just the very thing that Jesus spoke to Daniel's heart, follow me. That's what he said to the disciples, and they did, and their lives were forever transformed. And then they were given a mandate to do that very same thing and ask others to follow them. And you hear individuals like Paul say, follow me as I follow Christ. And what happened? What happened in that moment? 2,000 years ago, we're here today, because of a movement that started with a handful of people becoming more like Jesus. That's where it all started. And as I was working on this message, I was thinking about, man, how can I articulate the kind of life change that happens when people intersect with Jesus? But not just that, in what ways does having a permanent home change that? In what ways does that broaden our scope? Does that increase our scale and allow us to reach more people? You might hear me stand up here and you're like, man, he talks about more people. And man, it seems like he really cares about numbers. You're right. I absolutely do. Because every number is a person. And every person has a story. And every story matters to God. So I absolutely care about numbers. Because I believe that Jesus cares about numbers. Because every number not here learning to become more like Jesus is someone apart from God, and we want to bring as many people in. And I was thinking, man, how can I illustrate the kind of life change that having a permanent facility will allow us to reach? How can I explain that? And we've done things like invited Cheryl Bailey and Lisa Tanksley and Daniel Guadiano to come up over these past 3 weeks and share a little bit of their story. In week 1, if you were here, you heard the story of Jesse Martin and how he reached out to really plant us in San Marcos, the genesis of this. And he and his team were able to stand here and to see only what they envisioned in their minds years ago. And again, I can go back to those first few meetings in my living room with a handful of people where we prayed for you. We didn't know your names. We didn't know your stories, but we prayed for you. We prayed for this room, believing that God could do something miraculous. And as I was working on this message, and I found this quote, this is something that we've heard from other places and isn't new just to Icon Church, but I stumbled across a church that used this very same slogan. And they used it and talked about this in the context of their very first building campaign. And I saw this video that they made a few years ago, about a year and a half ago. And I saw it and I was like, you know what? That perfectly articulates what happens when people step out in faith and give. So without any further delay, I want you to watch this video. And I'll be honest, it's a bit of a long video, so I want you to stay with it. But it shows what happens when people step out in faith for a building campaign. This shows what happened for New Spring Church with their very first building campaign. It's a church much bigger than us, building something much bigger than what we're talking about, but the principles remain the same. I want you guys to watch this.
No. I'm not going to make you cry. I'm totally not going to make you cry. Go ahead. Come on. You got to. This is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it, I promise. Just keep going. Just keep going. Come on, Beth.
No, this is so not funny. Oh.
We're going to have a conversation. It's going to be awesome.
Really?
Yeah, couple to couple. What I'm doing right now is I'm collecting stories. I want to know your stories about how you started coming to New Spring. So Brian and Carrie, we'll start with y'all. What year?
I would say 2004 was the year we got invited by a friend. We were just married, and I didn't grow up in church, and I was a little hesitant, but first week I loved it.
That's awesome. Paul, how did you and Beth start coming to New Spring?
We got invited, so we came. It was in August of 2001. I saw this bald-headed man come out that was shaving his head.
I did have a bald head, didn't I?
Completely shaved head. And I thought, well, this is really cool. No, you used 0 notes. You spoke out of the Bible. And we thought, well, this is really cool for the kids. And so then we got in the car, and the kids were looking and saying, what are my parents going to think about this? And we said, we thought that was really awesome.
Beth, what was your impression the first time that you came?
The one thing that stuck out to me, Perry, was the friendliness. And it was so real. And I can remember saying to Paul, I think they really love us. This is awesome. I want to go back here. And that was 13 years ago.
Wow. What was the thing that stuck out to you the most that you said, this is why we're gonna be here?
The messages were super relevant to our life. It's ultimately where the Lord wanted to save me. I mean, I experienced salvation at New Spring Church, so.
Well, I'm sure both of, or all four of y'all, both couples, remember this thing that we did in 2004 called Dare You Move. It was our very first capital campaign we ever did. I'm just curious as to what, when I say dare you to move, what pops in your memory?
I think of when you set goals, they're always so monstrous. And then once that goal is met and exceeded, we're all looking at each other saying, why didn't we pray bigger?
Right. Yeah, because we were trying to raise money to buy 36 acres, and we were going to build a 2,500 seat auditorium, and that was unheard of. Paul, what do you remember about it?
I remember the casting a huge vision. This is where God's leading us, and this is where we're going to go. And I mean, come get on board, because we're going to do church in a way no one's ever done it before.
Carrie, what do you and Brian remember about Dare You to Move specifically?
Other than the song.
Dare to Move, the Switchfoot song? Yeah.
I mean, if I could sing it, I'd sing it for you, but dare you to move, just the words. It's like taking Jesus with what he says, that he promises in the Bible, like, you obey me and I'll show you great things. And it's true, that happened.
We were building one campus. We had, what's the most people you ever thought we would reach?
I can't imagine that maybe 5,000 people. I think that would have been huge if we thought we could fill this thing up twice.
You guys, both of you couples, have a real unique story in that you contributed to the very first capital campaign we ever did. I know both couples that you guys gave a significant offering and really invested in the church. What was it about Dare You to Move that said, we're going to get involved financially in this and make a commitment? What was it about that?
I think of other investments that people discuss, and everything seems to just fade away. But the one thing we can invest in at the kingdom, there's no way to lose that investment.
That's so good.
It's the only safe investment.
What about you guys? Y'all are young newlyweds, no kids. Just had a lot of better things to do with your money, but what was it?
Investing in our family, and our future family. We really see the benefit of that now, having kids in Kid Spring, and just, I wish I could have grown up like our two girls are growing up.
I was just thinking as Brian said that, I bet the amount he gave, and I don't know what it was, but he would give that today.
Absolutely.
To see his girls come to Jesus. And I've got that for my kids or grandkids. Or think of all the other people.
Think of all the other people. Paul, that's real unique. Think of all the other people, because when we gave, we thought we were given to Anderson campus, but we weren't given to Anderson campus because God's plans are always bigger. He always wants more. We were given to Anderson campus to set up a foundation so we could have a Greenville campus and a Florence campus and a Charleston campus and a Columbia campus and a Spartanburg campus and all these campuses all over the state, and none of us had any idea. And so the reason I called y'all here tonight, honestly, is just to thank y'all for, in 2004, investing and being willing to make that happen. But me telling you thank you, it would be okay, but I want you to hear from people's lives who you specifically impacted when you gave to Dare You to Move, that their lives were changed because you invested in the kingdom. You guys made a commitment. You thought it was gonna impact a few people, but it wound up impacting way more people than we ever imagined. And some of them tonight just want to share their story with you.
Hi. My name's Tim Brooks. First, I want to thank you guys for the way you give, for your commitment to giving, because it's made possible a church like New Spring where no perfect people like me can worship. I've been a worship pastor in a Baptist church most of my life. Then in 2009, that came dramatically and publicly to an end when it was revealed that I had a secret sin, a secret sexual sin. When that was revealed, my wife of 30 years and 2 college-age kids were absolutely devastated. They had no idea. They were hurt beyond belief, embarrassed, confused, even angry. My life as I knew it came to a screeching halt. I call it my life crash. Well, I went into a rehab program and I was gone for 6 months. And when I came back home, the question was asked on a Saturday, where are we going to church? Well, I knew there was nowhere I could go to church. No church would want me, no church would welcome me. My wife said to my daughter, tell him where we've been going to church. My daughter said, no, you tell him. My wife said, no, you tell him. Finally, my daughter said, we've been going to New Spring. Well, having been in a local church, I was one of these ministers that did not like New Spring, didn't like Perry. But I was certainly no place to barter over where we're going to church. So I said, well, New Spring it is. So we came the next day. First time I'd ever been in the building. First time I'd ever seen Perry. And during that service, I heard him refer to his own past struggle with internet pornography, which was my problem. As I sat there, tears running down my cheeks, I thought, wow, am I in the right place or what? I knew I was in a place where I could be encouraged, where I could be ministered to, and where I could heal, and man, was I right. This journey has been absolutely incredible, and here we are 5 years later. My marriage is healed. My relationship with my children is healed. Me and my wife are able to serve in the care room here on Sundays and encourage individuals with our story, and even encourage other couples who are struggling in their marriage. At a time in my life when I didn't feel like there was any place that I could worship, any place that I could serve, I'm in a church that allows me to use my story to encourage other people. I'm in a church that has given new meaning to my life, given me hope, and has just revolutionized my family's life. So I want to tell you again how much I appreciate your obedience to Jesus in the way that you give, because it's made it possible for me to find a new life. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Brianna. Before coming to New Spring, I felt, as long as I prayed and tried to do it right, live right, I didn't really need the local church, so I didn't come. One day, my daughter was invited to Fuse, and she in turn invited my twin boys. After coming to Fuse for a while in New Spring, all three of my teenagers had accepted Christ into their lives. After doing that, they actually started taking my youngest, who was 6 at the time, bringing her to Kids Spring. The changes in their lives, it's hard to explain how incredible it was. They began coming, setting up for Kids Spring. They would actually get up at 4 a.m. in the morning to come set up. They actually got up better for that than they did for school during the week. They had asked me several times to join them, and I would always just tell them, maybe next time, not this week. But it was one day I was dropping my youngest off to Kids Spring. On my way back to the parking lot, God had spoke to me, and he told me to come back, and I did. I have started volunteering at Kids Spring and check-in. I have also accepted Christ into my life, and the changes for myself and my family are phenomenal. I don't have to worry about my kids. I know they have a foundation, as well as myself, that when we have troubles, we know who to go to. And it's through your generosity of giving led me back to where I needed to be, which is to my Father. And I definitely thank you on behalf of my whole family. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam, and this is my wife, Amanda. Last year we had separated. We were fighting every day and blaming each other for everything, and we decided to call it quits after 9 years. When I moved out, I started trafficking marijuana from Colorado to Georgia, and then eventually from California. 20 pounds every 3-day trip, and no matter how much money I made, it just wasn't enough. And it all came crashing down when I was arrested. There was a New Spring campus that came to Greenwood, and I was bailed out of jail from the money of a stranger, and my wife showed up and decided to repair our marriage and wanted us to go to church. And we started coming to church, and I just went to keep her at first. But it was the second week that I heard that no one is too far from God. And since then, we started living holy ever after, and with Jesus at the center, and joined a small group because we can't do life alone. And I joined Fuse to start making a difference in students' lives so they wouldn't grow up like me. And my wife started serving in Kids Spring to start relationships with children and Jesus at an early age. I accepted Christ at New Spring, and because of your giving, I was able to hear the great news of Jesus and be rescued by the grace of God. And court is still open, and if I go to prison or whatever God's plan is, I know my wife and I can overcome this. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
So in 2004, we had no idea. And what's even more amazing is we still have no idea. One of the things we always say around here, guys, is every number has a name, every name has a story, every story matters to God. And tonight, you got a small picture of what a small investment in our church in 2004 has made a huge impact, because every number really does have a name, and every name really does have a story, and every one of those stories really do matter to God. So thank you so much for giving the way you did. Best is yet to come.
See, as I watched that video for the first time, I realized that we'll have that opportunity someday. I mean, that's what I see when I think about what God is going to do through this campaign, through this permanent facility. We're going to get to stand on the other side of it someday. So you guys are the ones that are lucky enough to sit here and to contribute towards this, that you'll get the privilege and the honor and the benefit. I mean, imagine. We've heard a few stories. And I believe in the past 2.5 years, God has already done that over and over and over. Like Benji said, we could pass the microphone around and there'd be countless stories of lives that have been changed because of what God has done through Icon Church, through you. And what we're saying is that getting a permanent home is going to be exponential. I believe that what God is going to do through this is bigger than any one of us can even believe, more than any one of us can imagine and wrap our brains around. See, we got the opportunity to see a snapshot of what I believe God has in store for us in the coming years. And it's our opportunity to get to be like those two couples and to be a part of it on the front end. And that is why, for me, I don't look at this as a sacrifice. This is an opportunity to invest into people like that. So here in just a moment, I'm going to pray. The band is going to play kind of one final song. And we're going to have an opportunity to contribute to that. We're having an opportunity to pledge over the next 3 years to give towards this cause, to getting a permanent facility. And I want to tell you right now, it's close. It's close. God continues to do miracle after miracle after miracle, that we're even in some conversations about a permanent facility. And we have an opportunity to step up. I'm going to be honest. Before we started this, before May 1st, I met with several different individuals. I met with the leadership of the church, the boards, and different people. And there was quite a few people that got on board and made commitments and contributions towards this campaign. But since May 1st, understand that it's taken time and we've needed to pray and think about this, but we haven't had a whole lot of people, numerically, individuals, get on board. There's been some significant gifts. There's been people jumping on, but we need you. If you're a regular here at Icon Church, if you're not a regular and you feel like God is stirring your heart and you're going to become a regular, or maybe you're even a guest here, and God is doing something in your heart and he's asking you to give. Maybe it's a one-time gift, or maybe it is a commitment for 3 years. I want to challenge you to do it. There's no gift that's too small. I've talked to people and they've said, hey, man, I just don't know what I can give. I'm sure I'll give something over the next few years, and I don't want to make a commitment because I don't want to tie myself because it's so small. I can't. Listen, there is no commitment too small. Our kids are giving towards this. We can get on board. And there's no gift that's too large. So the host team's going to come down right now, and they're going to pass out these 4R City cards. And on the back, there's a place to put your name and your 3-year commitment. Maybe you want to give it once all up front. Maybe you want to give it once a month or every week, or however you choose to give. But they're going to pass out these cards to you right now. And I want you to look over these cards and to make a commitment and to make a pledge. And we're just going to take a few moments, and we want to give you space to do that. We want to give you time to sit, and maybe you're here with your spouse, or maybe you're here with friends or family, and you need time to think about it, to pray about it, to talk it over. We want to give you space to do just that. So Benji and the band, when I'm done praying, they're going to just play, but they're going to play behind. We can stay in our seats. Just take time to pray and ask God how he's leading you to contribute and to give towards this campaign. And I believe as we all step up, as there is 100% participation, God, through tiny little gifts, through really large gifts, through miracles that we don't even know yet, God is going to do this. And then we'll get to sit back and watch all he has in store. So in a moment, I'm going to pray. We'll fill out these cards, the band will play, and then I'll come back up and have one final thing. So let's do this. Let's pray and ask God how he'd like us to contribute and to be a part of this campaign.